Hi everyone, let's see another question on cross-text connection. We'll start off by reading the question stem. Based on the text, how would P and X most likely to characterize the conclusion presented in text 1? So we have to pay extra attention to a conclusion mentioned in text 1. And then when we go to text 2, we have to identify how would P and X feel about this conclusion, right? Let's read the text 1 now. Astronomer Mark Holland and colleagues examined 4 white dwarfs. What are these 4 white dwarfs? Small, dense remnants of past stars. So they are remnants of past stars. So these people, Mark and colleagues, they were examining 4 white dwarfs in order to determine the composition of exoplanets that used to orbit those stars. So basically, why were they examining these 4 white dwarfs? To understand the composition of exoplanets that used to orbit those stars. Okay, great. So this tells me the reason why they are examining this. Studying wavelengths of light in the white dwarf atmospheres, the team reported that traces of elements such as lithium and sodium support the presence of exoplanets with continental crust similar to Earth's. So basically, this particular sentence gives us the conclusion. And what is the conclusion about? They found these traces of elements such as lithium and sodium, and this presence supports the presence of exoplanets with continental crust that's similar to Earth, right? So exoplanets had a continental crust which was similar to Earth because of the presence of the elements lithium and sodium. That is what the text 1 conclusion is about. Let's go to text 2 and understand how P and X would feel about this particular conclusion. Past studies of white dwarf atmospheres have concluded that certain exoplanets had continental crusts. Okay, we still don't have these 2 people. Let's read ahead. Geologist K and astronomer X argue that those studies unduly emphasize atmospheric traces of lithium and other individual elements as signifiers of the types of rock found on Earth. So they don't really like the reasoning given in text 1 for the conclusion. The reasoning was basically the presence or the traces of elements that they were able to find, like lithium and sodium. They don't really support that kind of a reasoning. Let's read ahead. The studies don't adequately account for different minerals made up of various ratios of those elements. So what is the problem? The study is not basically accounting for different minerals that can consist of lithium and sodium. Alright, and the possibility of rock types not found on Earth that contain those minerals. So they are not looking at the possibility of those minerals who can also have the lithium and sodium but are not found on Earth. Correct? So this conclusion that they have drawn because of the traces of elements that they could find, that the crust is similar to Earth, is possibly incorrect because they are not considering different minerals who have the same elements but are not present in Earth, right? Okay, the relationship is negative again. The text 2 or these people P and X do not support the text when they think that they are not considering other resources or other things while coming to this conclusion. All right, let's go to A now. As unexpected. So will this P and X say that this particular conclusion is unexpected? I don't think so, right? I mean, the texts are negative. They both are, not in the same lines when it comes to the conclusion. But there's nothing about expectation or not expecting it, correct? But let's just read it ahead. As unexpected because it was widely believed at the time that white dwarf exoplanets lack continental crust. Was this a widely held belief? I don't know. The text 1 or the text 2, they're not telling me about the belief, or was it widely being held by researchers or not. I have no clue. Nowhere mentioned in the text 1 or text 2. So A is definitely out. This is out of context or irrelevant, not given. B, as premature because researchers have only just begun trying to determine what kinds of crust white dwarf exoplanets had. Again, this is around the time frame. Have they been trying to determine this for a very long time, or they have just recently started, exploring this area? We don't know about this. None of the texts are talking about it. C as questionable because it rests on an incomplete consideration of potential sources of the elements detected in white dwarf atmospheres. So this particular option is telling me again that that can be questionable. The conclusion can be questionable because it's based upon certain considerations, certain things, right? As far as I remember, text 2 did mention that the problem was how they are coming to the conclusion, correct? That they are banking on one particular aspect and not considering all the aspects before jumping to the conclusion. And C is telling me the same thing. The problem is with what they are considering. So C is definitely looking good as of now, but I still have to go ahead and eliminate D as puzzling because it is unusual to successfully detect lithium and sodium when analyzing wavelengths of light in white dwarf atmospheres. This is not being discussed again. How are they detecting lithium and sodium in the wavelengths of lights is not being talked about. So very clearly C is the correct option. Now when you read this entire text, you might have felt like, oh my god, there's so many scientific terms, looks a little difficult, but did you notice how easily we could eliminate our options and that the options were placed in a very simpler manner? So don't get all panicky seeing a science text or scientific experiment related text, because there's a possibility that you will be able to eliminate your options in a very easy manner.